My 7 years relationship has ended. And in that disorientation, I disappear into a doomed, torrid love affair with a charming, narcissistic man whose giant red flags were obvious to everyone but myself. Our relationship, or whatever existed between us, coughed its last breath when, after spending weeks pretending I did not exist, he showed up at the front door of my Airbnb, kissed me on the mouth without warning, and told me he'd like us to be friends. I doubted anything tasted more bitter than getting dumped right after a divorce, and yet I tasted it. When a few days later, just when I started to get back on my feet, I found out that I was pregnant. What does it take to rebuild when everything has fallen apart? In today's episode, I'll take you through one of the most painful and yet elevating moment of my life, and we'll uncover how even the darkest places can hold whispers of grace. Stay tuned with me until the very end for a poem that teach you how to cradle yourself through darkness. This episode has a recounting of a deeply challenging personal experience. Be extra gentle and tender with yourself through the listening experience. In this series, we journey along the untamed path of purpose and freedom. I'm Milena, here to share with you stories, insights, and even poetry that guide you towards a life and business rooted in your soul. So take a breath. Pour yourself a cup of hibiscus tea and let's wander down the Wildflower way together. 3 months after my 29th birthday, I laid alone in a hospital bed, my marriage irrevocably behind me. My then husband and I had separated, a decision that tore me apart, but I knew deep down was right for me. We had a perfect life in Singapore. He was climbing the corporate ladder. I was growing my coaching business. We bought color-coordinated kitchen appliances for our sunlit apartment. We attended black tie charity dinners and discussed mortgages options with real estate agents who gifted us fine wine. To the outside world, we had it all. But inside, I couldn't shake off a growing emptiness. Over time, the nagging feeling that this perfect life wasn't mine grew into a persistent ache, a longing for a different life throbbing through my veins. Believe me, I did not want to leave. I grew up in a traditional Vietnamese family. The women from where I came don't leave their husband, but every drop of blood in my body told me to walk away. And so, one quiet afternoon, I put my clothes, laptop, journal, yoga mat, and a Tibetan singing bowl in a suitcase. I sobbed as I walked past my kitchen counter, past the DeLonghi espresso machine and pastel designer kettle, through the wooden front door, and closed it behind me. My 7 years relationship has ended. And in that disorientation, I disappear into a doomed, torrid love affair with a charming, narcissistic man whose giant red flags were obvious to everyone but myself. One time, when I was sick, he left me alone at our rented villa for the whole day. I dragged myself out of bed and rode a motorbike to a restaurant for pumpkin soup. When I arrived back, I found him laughing on our front porch with the 2 girls he had apparently brought back to our place. Our relationship, or whatever existed between us, coughed its last breath when, after spending weeks pretending I did not exist, he showed up at the front door of my Airbnb, kissed me on the mouth without warning, and told me he'd like us to be friends. I doubted anything tasted more bitter than getting dumped right after a divorce, and yet I tasted it. 10 times the bitterness when a few days later, just when I started to get back on my feet, I found out that I was pregnant. When my period was late, I shrugged it off at first. My cycle was unpredictable, and despite past recklessness, I had never gotten pregnant before. When I saw the 2 stripes on the pregnancy test, I felt like the bathroom tile cracked open beneath my knee. I'm pregnant. I knew instantly I didn't want to keep this pregnancy, and that meant abortion. Abortion. That word sent waves of shame and self-disgust up my throat. I thought I was smart. How could I be so stupid? I couldn't reach out to my parents. They didn't even know about my divorce and would be shattered to learn that their accomplished, picture-perfect daughter was knocked up by a man they'd never met. Besides, I couldn't bear adding their emotional storm in addition to my own, so I called a close girlfriend who I knew would not judge me. After hearing my story, she said, "I'm sorry, Milena. It's not your fault." Her voice was tender as she continued to advise me on the different medical options for abortion. But all I could hear was blood-curdling scream in my own head. "Of course it's your fault, you stupid girl. Who else is it but yours?" I asked another girlfriend to let me stay at her place in Ho Chi Minh City for a few days and to take me to the hospital. I was feeling so desperately lonely. She readily jumped to my aid but couldn't be with me during the procedure. So there I was, ending my 20s with a bang. Divorced, with no place to call home, abandoned by a lover right after getting knocked up, alone in a hospital, and getting an abortion. It did not help that the doctor and nurses kept telling me to keep the pregnancy. "Are you sure this is a living being?" They had told me on my first appointment, casting pitying, judgmental eyes. I'd made my decision. If you can't support me, I'll find another hospital who can. I'd said coldly, blinking back tears. I'd never felt more sure about anything in my life. I refused to use my body to grow the seed of a man who didn't give a damn about me. And I was under no romantic illusion about being a single mom. The nurse entered the room. 2 white pills to end the pregnancy, and more pills for pain. "Nausea and cramps are normal. Press the button if you need help." I searched for a trace of warmth in her voice but found none. I swallowed the pills, feeling them moving down my throat through my sternum to the pit of my stomach. I felt their weight, heavy as lead. I was afraid of the pain, but I knew the only way was through. 50 minutes later, the nausea and cramps came on hard. I tossed and turned, moaned and groaned. I was drenched in sweat. It was more pain than I had expected, but I didn't want to press the button for help. I was alone, utterly alone in the world. I dragged myself to the ensuite bathroom, held the toilet bowl, and retched so hard I fear I might turn myself inside out. I felt both disgusted and disgusting. Stupid, stupid, stupid. The voice kept screaming in my head. Life has brought me to my knees now on the cold bathroom floor of a hospital. With no one and nowhere to turn to, I did the thing I least expected. I prayed, "God, I cannot do this. Please help me. Let this happen with as little pain and as much ease as possible." And next, I felt like time has slowed, then stood still. A gentle wave of energy brought me up from the toilet bowl back to bed. I was moving my body, but my limbs felt lifted from within. That same presence moved me to squat on the end of the hospital bed with my hands holding the railing and my body rock back and forth. Next come quietness. No more regrets. No more self-punishing voices. No more thoughts of what ifs and what would be. just quiet, like standing alone at the center of a still lake, barefoot on the water, one single ripple, stretching till infinity. I felt it then oneness, divine love. Unlike welcoming a superior being from high above, it feels more like a falling backward. You soften your body on the water to find yourself floating, carried by the ocean that has always been there. The moment I finally surrendered, I fell back into the lap of God. Love, so much love and tenderness, a simple, honest, relentless love that doesn't ask for anything in return. A love I don't need to earn, a love that doesn't care if I think I deserve it, a love that is given without question. In that moment, I knew not only that I was loved, but I was love. I am love. I don't know how long I was in that state of oneness. Maybe it was 10 minutes. Maybe it was 40. But I know my body went through the rest of the abortion process without pain. I was discharged from the hospital the following morning. In the afternoon of the same day, I got a manicure and pedicure, a mix and match set of pastel blue, pink, and golden glitters. It was raining when I was inside the nail salon, but it stopped once I finished. Smelling the rain, I walked around Ho Chi Minh City streets and found a quiet cafe. The waitress smiled and guided me to a table before a Victorian-style window overlooking a big yellow flame tree. I sat down and watched sunlight dancing on the naked leaves. Droplets from the rain still lingered on the branches, sparkling emeralds. I knew I had more healing ahead, but the encounter with divine love forever changed me. Tattooed in my soul is a sacred knowing. I am love. We are love, no matter what. It took me 4 years to heal through this experience and then share this story. It was the most terrifying story for me to share because the topic around abortion is one of the most controversial and polarizing topic that we have now in our modern society. The other day, I had an interview with a journalist and she asked me, why? Why do I share this kind of controversial, very vulnerable personal story? Am I not afraid that people would judge me, would use it to attack me, or would alienate me or cancel me? And what if other people look at what I do and think that I'm just doing this to get attention? My answer to a question like this has always been unwavering. I share simply because I believe the truth, when brought into the light, has the most incredible power to connect and heal. I share this partly for myself too, because I believe that writing down our story and sharing it, putting it out into the light is one giant step to integrate our healing and boldly claim the truth of our lived experience for ourselves. And of course, I'm not saying this as in everyone must step out there and share your story. It's not like that, but at least it has been for me. And I know that has been the same for many women that I mentor and coach in the past many years, that once they have healed and digested and found the empowering truth in their story and dare to put it out there despite their own fear of judgment and their own fear of rejection, they feel liberated from within. So I did that partly for me. I also did that for all the women, and I'm thinking of one in particular right now, who went through the same experience with me, having to have an abortion alone and carry so much shame and self-judgment. I do this for women who have had to gone through an experience like that, and also any women who have had to gone through experiences where they suffer alone. Just by sharing this story, if it can help just one woman who feel like she isn't alone, just one person for just a brief moment feel that she is seen in her humanity, in the shared pain, then it would be enough for me. I feel very strongly about how our society for way too many years and the patriarchy have placed this double standard on women, especially in these similar circumstances with abortion, for example, and in so many other issues, like abortion being one of them, where women is there to suffer the blame, the criticism, the judgment, the punishment from society, but also from ourselves to ourselves, while men walk free. When I recount this story through my writing and when I read it to you, I feel still stunned by how much I judge myself. I think the loudest critics was in my own head. And it is the toughest critic you ever have, because if you have an inner critic, there is no place you can go and the critic not follow you. When I read this story, I feel a sense of deep, deep, deep love and compassion to my past self. It was true what my friend said, Milena, it's not your fault. It wasn't her fault. My past self didn't know better. She did the best of what she knew, and so many of her decisions was fueled by inner wounds that she did not have the capacity or the support to move through. And so I hope that by this, you get to also look back at any experience where you feel like you made a huge mistake, where you told yourself, how could I be so stupid? To give even just a bit more of compassion to your past self and forgiveness to yourself and your past self. Am I afraid of what other people think of me when sharing this story? Yes, I was afraid. But I think through this past 10 years of being a voice, of sharing my story, of having a blog and having a platform, and have always have it unwavering commitment to truth, I have trained myself to not let that fear of judgment control me, and to really understand, like deep down, that I cannot control what other people think. That, and it's also not my job. It's not my job to try to control what other people think of me, but it is my job to advocate for myself, advocate for women who have gone through situation like me, and to speak my truth. That is my job, and that is the thing I could control. So that's where I focus my energy on. And finally, to the coaches who are listening, or to the change maker, the healer, the teachers, the guide, the coach who are listening to this episode, I am a business coach, and I shared this kind of story that doesn't seem to have anything to do with business. I do that because I believe that when a client chooses us, they choose us not just because we are good at what we do, that we have our own methodology, skills, and specialty related to the niche we set out to support the client with, but they choose us also because they feel safe with us. They would choose you because of your whole human experience, right? So by daring to share your personal story, to share your stand, to talk about what you believe in beyond your niche, can also be such a powerful way to create loyalty and build trust and relationship with your audience. Of course, you still need to talk about your niche. You still need to have that space in your content to share about the thing that your ideal client care deeply regarding to the niche you have chosen, but also don't feel like you are not allowed to share other aspects of your life too, especially the richest experience, because you definitely can. And I would say that is one of the most effective way to create incredibly loyal customers too. So yes, allow your audience to see you in your wholeness as a professional, yes, but also as a human who has walked through fire and come out on the other side burning bright. So now, a gift to you. I wrote this poem on one night when I already knew that I was pregnant. I did not told anyone yet, so I was completely alone. I remember opening the door of my Airbnb that night and just seeing an empty room. I felt so heavy and just terrified of sleeping alone again. So I boiled the kettle and made myself a cup of chamomile tea. It wasn't just a cup, but it was a teapot and a little teacup. I light a candle and I put everything on the tray on the bed. I had my notebook and a pen, and as I sipped my tea, I was falling deeper into this infinite darkness that had no bottom. This poem came to me. Writing and poetry has always been my lifeline through the darkest time, and I hope that this poem will inspire you and making you feel more courageous to hold yourself through even the darkest time, because it is when we feel like we deserve love the most is when we need love the most, especially from ourselves. The poem is titled Loving Yourself When It's Hard. Loving yourself when it's hard. One morning, I woke with an ache, a bruise pulsing in my rib cage from a wound that needed no name. I let myself sleep until noon, my body wrapped tight in my blanket like a wet moth, unsure it could ever fly. I'd learned to be soft to myself when things get hard. I'd learned to write in my journal. Even though today feels heavy, they will be still tomorrow. Even though it hurts, pain is the proof that I'm still alive. And even though darkness feels endless, it carves light into the hollows of my soul. If you are suffering too, I want to let you know that it's okay to suffer. You don't have to be happy to be good. It's enough to sit in the shadows to make room for the ache. It is enough to whispers in the dark. I see you. I will stay. Because love doesn't come in rings or roses, but in the hand you place on your ribs, patting gently when pain hangs heavy. Because the love that saves you is the love you give yourself when life splits you in half, when all you can do is cradle your heart in your bare's hand and whisper, it's okay. It's okay. Thanks for joining me on this very emotional episode of the Wildflower Way. I hope you took really good care of yourself through the listening of that episode. And if any big emotion come up to you, please reach out to me for support. You can always write to us at info@milenanwit.com. My team and I are there to support you if you need it. As always, I would be so grateful if you could subscribe to the show, follow it, and especially leave a review, because your review is the golden support that would truly help other wildflower women to find their way here with us. Now, the best way to stay connected to me is to join my Wildflower letter. It's free, but it is not cheap, and it is loved by 4,000 readers worldwide. So go ahead to milenanguyen.com/letter. That is milenanguyen.com/letter. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, may your heart be wild and your spirit free. Now go out there and bloom.